نذهب للدكتور عقاب
I
أعزائي.
go to
دكتور
Dr.
عقاب،
Auqaab.
الأعين
Yes.
الآن
Now
تتجه إلى
eyes are
الوساطة
moving towards
الباكستانية في هذه
the
المرحلة
Pakistani
التي
mediation in
تشهد
this
فيها إيران كم هذه
phase,
العقوبات
where Iran is
الاقتصادية من
seeing
قبل
these
الولايات
sanctions.
المتحدة. هل
Will
ستتوسط
Pakistan
باكستان في
mediate
حال
in
قيام
case the United
الولايات
States
المتحدة بشن حرب
launches
اقتصادية
an
واسعة النطاق
expanded
على إيران؟
economic war against Iran?
Pakistan has been doing this from the beginning. It was the initiator of the mediation effort. It's in Pakistan's national security interest and national economic interest to maintain a certain degree of peace and security in the region for its own survival and future and prosperity, as is the case for all the countries in the Gulf region. So throughout the conflictual time since the beginning of this conflict, Pakistan has literally led the way in mediation. It's not going to stop now. I think right now there's an opportunity where there's a reduction in military conflict in itself. There's less violent action. As a result, Pakistan's taken the opportunity to even visit Iran right now. And in fact, they did have a phone call. The Chief of Defense Forces, General Munir, had a chat with Donald Trump a few days ago, in fact. And I think that may lead to some breakthrough or may not, depends on whether the Iranians accept certain provisions, because they can't highlight everything that needs to be said in open airwaves. That's bravado. That's the way you try to dominate, not to reduce your stance in front of your domestic audiences as well. But behind the scenes, there's a lot more going on that nobody knows about except for the leaderships on both countries, maybe, and mediators like Pakistan to some extent, and delivering messages in confidence. And that's where Pakistan comes in. It has the confidence of Iran, it has the confidence of the United States, and it wants both parties to come to some form of resolution. And as a result, it has achieved this unique position where it can deliver certain messages from one side to the other and come to some form of understanding. But having so much vitriol in the airwaves on both sides doesn't help matters, because this does get into what the domestic audiences may want. And there are hawks on both sides who are applying pressure to each of the governments, which doesn't help matters, because then they apply pressure without realizing what's really been said within. And this is where the pressure is within the Trump administration as well as the current government in Iran. And that's where the problem lies. And now we'll have to see what's happening, because Chief of Defense Forces, General Munir, is there right now in Iran having talks with the leadership. And when this transpires and he returns and there's a bit more openness and understanding, there may be some output. There may be an off-ramp, but may not be, depending on the intransigence of all parties and whether they can sustain this as well. And economic war, it's been for a while, by the way. This has turned into an economic war by the Iranians. They squeezed the Hormuz Strait for economic reasons, to strangulate the Americans to some extent. That's where the blockade came. Now it's just another stage and a boost in this. It's not the beginning of it. It's way down in the middle of it already.
Dr. Auqaab, here everyone is really asserting that there are messages in the hands of General Asim Munir in this visit to Iran. What is the content of these messages, and are they different than past messages that did not really have an effect in de-escalating this war, be it militarily or even economically?
Well, if I knew that, I couldn't tell you anyway, but I don't know that. These messages are highly confidential. They're in the hands of General Munir for a particular reason, and they're being kept out of the media for the time being because they don't want the situation to unravel for one reason or another, or any other party, extra-regional party, or any other party within the region to undermine what is happening right now. So this is why the general has gone to do face-to-face meetings with the president and the foreign minister and other leaders, maybe even in the military. He is a senior general, and as a result, he has the confidence of people within the Iranian military as well. So I think it's very important to understand that nobody's going to know until this information is released exactly what they're going to talk about. I think I don't have a magic ball to find out exactly what's happening right now, and I can't see exactly what's happening. This will transpire as it does. We'll see what the reactions are. The fact of the matter is, this is a very unusual question to ask.
أذهب للدكتور
Dr.
عقاب. دكتور
Auqaab,
عقاب، تحدثنا عن
we have
رهانات
spoken about
كلا
the bets
الطرفين،
of
إذا
both
كانت الولايات
sides, be it the
المتحدة
U.S.
أو
or Iran.
إيران.
Sorry,
الولايات
the
المتحدة
U.S.
تعول على
is
الداخل الإيراني والمظاهرات
relying on
وسقوط النظام،
protests and turmoil in
وإيران
the
هي
Iranian
تعول على
interior,
الانتخابات
and Iran, on the
الأمريكية.
other side,
في
is
هذه
relying on
المرحلة
the midterm
ومع
elections.
فقدان الثقة
In
التام بين
the light of
الطرفين،
distrust
ما هو
between both sides,
المسار
what is the
التي
path that
ستتبعه
Pakistan is
باكستان
going
في
to
هذه
take in this
الوساطة
mediation
للخروج
to
من
get
هذه
out of these
النقاط
points
وهذه
of
المراهنات
contention and these
التي في
bets
النهاية تصب في
that
تأجيج هذا
help
الوضع وهذا
escalate this
الصراع؟
fight?
I think when you go back to when the MOU was signed by both parties agreed to the MOU. It's not as if it came and arose and somebody forced one party or the other. Both sides agreed to it. The problem was that Israel was not willing to accept that MOU and wanted to go it alone. And this is where the US eventually came back and had to renegotiate. And this whole conflict after the signing of the MOU was a renegotiation. That's what it is. Now, if the US is trying to push the idea of Hormuz Strait, which was as a result of the invasion in the first place, or as a result of the war in the first place, it wasn't an issue before then. It could calm down, but the real issues are much deeper and much greater. And the US wanted a regime change in the first place. That's not happened. In fact, 47 years of sanctions have not happened to do that much to the regime. In fact, this war has consolidated their control even stronger. When you have such bombardment, you tend to make the country more resistant and unite under the leadership of whatever that leadership might be, whether there was there or not before. Problem here is that economic sanctions may have a certain squeeze on Iran because its inflation is sky high. It's got 2.02 million rials per dollar. I mean, that's extensively bad. But that's not going to be the end of the matter. Iran will find a way. It has access to other countries in ways such as China and Russia, who don't really care for the sanctions so much, who are under sanctions in many ways themselves. So there'll be, and as your other guests mentioned, they'll get out of this somehow and prolong it. And the decisive issue is the midterm elections for the time being. And although your guest says that Trump will do this under executive orders, he will be handcuffed to some extent. And he won't be able to carry out what he needs to. And I think that will allow Iran maybe to come to some form of understanding with the Democrats and the administration, to come to some form of compromise. I think that's what's on their mind. And so they're willing to push it so far for the next few months until something transpires. But the truth is, in the end, there's a lot of uncertainty unless both sides come to the table eventually. And there's no honesty involved. There's no trust involved. There's no appreciation of each other's side and each other's situation, because I think the interests are so polarized and so different that they're not able to do this right now. It's also the fact that Iran does not trust the United States that signed the agreement and then want to renegotiate. How do you do that in the first place then? So I think there's a massive trust deficit that needs to be gotten over, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And this is where the mediation comes in, to put some form of sense on both sides. And this is where Pakistan is looking at the larger picture on the region and the global environment and trying to do something about it. But in the long run, at the end of the day, Pakistan can't force both sides that are intransigent and unwilling to talk to each other. They can't force them to the table. They can only let each other know where there is a possibility for a give on each side that may be acceptable for each side, to come to some modicum of understanding so they can start talking again. And that's what mediation is all about. But it can all fall out of the window again. Everything can collapse very quickly if people or countries carry on doing what they're doing.
So much. Dr.
مسعود لحضرتك.
Alizé. I thank all my guests.
شكرا.
Dr. Auqaab Alizé, Professor of Strategic Studies. Thank you all.
Thank you.